Good morning. This is Bill from Curious Cars and Auto House of Naples on a, it's going to be a shitty, muggy, horrible Florida, whatever the hell day this is. I think it's a Thursday, and it just doesn't matter. We've had this week of heat. We're here in February. It's supposed to be nice. There's supposed to be chilly mornings. I'm supposed to be wearing a light jacket. Instead, we've got humidity in the air. I've got glasses that are partially fogged up. And it just doesn't bode well for none of it does. I mean, all the indicators are bad. Everywhere you look, all the indicators are bad. The markets are tanking. You've got strife in Eastern Europe. You've got just misery everywhere. And I just don't see any good things on the horizon. But I never really was an optimist. So I'm sure there's people out there who could tell me that it just isn't going to be that bad. I'm not going to believe them, but at least they could tell me that. I'm just beat, look, and I'm not going to make this video as a, poor me moment where I cry about all the crap going on, but I'm beat. And I can understand being beat from physical labor or from intense work or, all the things that are semi-helpful. But what I'm beat from is stress and misery and horrible people in my life doing horrible things to me. And that's the kind of beat, that's the kind of stress that blows the side of your heart out. It's not in any way healthy. So I've got that going on right now, and I think that just sucks. So animals have been at a minimum. There's a lot of birds around from what I can hear. They're tweeting, they're going nuts, but I haven't really seen too many of them. We'll keep an eye out. There's a big pile of ants over there right in the spot that I do this video. Thank you, Peter, for not being attentive to that. So hopefully I can step in those and be skeletonized in minutes. And, if anyone finds the camera and uploads it, well, everyone will know what happened. But otherwise, it's just, it's just crappy. So what I'm going to do is leap and dive directly into this truck just to get it over with. It might even be a quick video. There's birds flying around. Not even by design. So we're going to just jump right into it. And what I have today is a 1991 Chevrolet S10 pickup truck. This one happens to be a 4x4, which I think is cool, but it's irrelevant. The point of this video is talking about the S10 in the sum total. And it was, frankly, okay, the S10 is an historical vehicle. Let's just get that out of the way right away. It was the first domestically built compact pickup truck that came from the big three automakers. This was the first one. It came out in 1982. It was, released in 81, but as an 82 model year truck, and had been in the works for some time. It was introduced as a quarter ton, and I put that in air quotes because it's not really official, but, call it a quarter ton pickup truck. Your standard C10 at the time was a half ton, the C1500. So this was obviously going to be smaller, and those birds are going batshit. God, I hope that isn't a call to arms or anything. But anyway, so there it is. First compact truck. It came to fruition in the 1970s with all the Arab oil embargo stuff, the higher prices of gasoline, the income going down due to inflation. All the stuff that we have going on right now, of course, was going on in the 1970s. And as a result, GM wanted to come out with something that would be a little more economical to run. Also, the Japanese makers were having pretty good success selling their compact pickup trucks, and that's something that didn't go unnoticed by GM. They did have the Chevy Love, which was out for a while, but that was basically a rebadged Isuzu. Was not really a domestic product, and though it has a pretty strong following, was just not very substantial. So this thing was from the drawing board designed to appeal to the American market, and it did. It absolutely did. One could actually call it a bit of a master stroke from GM, and as we all know, that's a little bit rare Oh, that's not fair to say, but GM's had its share of misses, and this was one of the hits, and that's a pretty big deal. The LUV, which stands for Light Utility Vehicle, it sold fairly well, people bought it, but it was basically the same market as the Japanese pickup truck. This truck would appeal to people who would not buy a Japanese pickup truck at the time at gunpoint. They're the American diehard patriots. They don't want to go throw money at the country that attacked Pearl Harbor. So, they're just the idea of buying a compact truck from another country was just a non-starter. And this truck went out and found them. And, so again, first generation, first U.S. built small pickup, pretty damn cool. Well, one thing that's interesting about it is it's a real truck. I mean, it has a conventional ladder frame, not unlike the larger C10s at the time. So it's a full-frame truck. It used a torsion bar setup at the front with A-arms, and the rear suspension used leaf springs. And again, not at all unlike the larger truck, just in a smaller package. And the front suspension was actually modeled on the G-body platform, like the Oldsmobile Cutlass and Buick Regal of the, late 70s, early 1980s. So actually a pretty good frame to base that on. It used, we'll get into the mechanicals later. The point being is this: the truck is good looking, and that was a help. This first generation, and there were a few generations, but the first one they called a square body for obvious reasons. It's obviously very square looking. And it does look like a proper truck, and it borrowed design cues from the larger trucks. It had a big front grille with, two square headlights. It had a big chrome bumper. It had a square hood. The hood on this S10 looks a lot like the hood on the same year C10, just smaller. It also used the same color combinations, the same interior setups. It was, for all intents and purposes, a miniaturized full-size truck, and that was the right thing at the time. It also appeared, this is kind of fascinating to me. So it ended up being a perfect platform to set up the small Blazer and, of course, the GMC Jimmy on the following year. That came out in '83, and it predated that famous XJ Jeep Cherokee, which does get the credit for sort of inspiring the modern SUV market. Well, the Blazer was out first, and I think that was also the signal of a sea change coming. The Cherokee had more immediate success, but the Blazer was a pretty cool piece and continues to be kind of collectible today. But these were very, very important units from GM, beyond a shadow of a doubt, and they came with the right equipment and the right build list to make the traditional truck buyer happy. They were smaller, obviously. They were more frugal than the full size. They still had a reasonable amount of truck utility. They still had a pretty good payload capacity. They had a pretty good towing capacity, and it was a formula for success. And over the years, they have become beloved. There's a strong collector market for these. There's a strong aftermarket for these. Lots of people making parts and gear for them, and it has been, from the very beginning, one of the absolute favorites of the crazy, loony, mini truck set with all the lowered pickups and big wheels and dancing beds and big woofers and all that sort of thing. The S10 has historically been a strong part of that automotive genre. There were different trim packages with varying states of luxury. You have to realize this is going on now like 40, 50 years ago. So, we get annoyed today when cool seats are not standard equipment. Well, back then, power steering was optional. Never mind power windows, locks, that sort of thing. Power brakes were optional, air conditioning, that sort of thing. And, you could get a pretty damn base S10 at the time, which didn't cost too much money and made a lot of sense for guys who wanted a truck but didn't want to spend a lot on the upkeep or the initial purchase price. It was also kind of the start. Well, that's not true. That really started in the 60s, but it was an advancement of the idea of the truck as a lifestyle choice. Those are scary words, but a lifestyle, more than just you need to buy the truck because you got to move stuff around. People bought trucks in the 80s, a growing percentage of them, because they thought they were cool, and they thought they reflected well on them, and made them look like people that they wanted to look like. And the S10 fit directly into that. So all very, very cool stuff. So I tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to pause for a minute, and then we're going to get into this specific S10, and then we'll take it for a drive. So bear with me. Alright, so let's just dive into this. A big part of the S10 success, and it was immediately successful. In fact, Chevy was advertising it as the best-selling pickup in its class by the time the second model year rolled around, which was, again, they took it right to Toyota and Nissan and did a pretty damn good job of it. A big part of that was the exterior styling. Again, this first gen is called the square body for very obvious reasons. It's very square looking. You had a big front grille, you had the two rectangular headlights, you had a chrome bumper, you had a hood and fenders, all very reminiscent of the larger truck. The doors, as they should be, fair for any truck. You had a 6-foot bed, and look at all the water we have dripping on this thing. Oh, God. Dalton. Anyway, you had a 6-foot bed. Later on, they'd offer a 7.5-foot bed, a long bed. Initially, they only had this standard cab. Then they got into an extended cab, and all of the many options that would come with pickup trucks eventually applied to the S10 as well. Also, the engine choices right off the bat were pretty damn good. You had a 1.9 4-cylinder, and then that 2.8 V6, which showed up in a variety of cars and trucks over the year and motivated the truck pretty well, and turned out to be a pretty good choice. It was a real truck. You had a double-walled bed that had a decent payload. You had a good tow capacity. You had full frame, and then some technology came along that absolutely helped it move down the road, and we'll get into that as we go. So anyway, if you have a look inside the bed on this thing, it's not a bad size. Again, it's 6 feet in length. This one has a liner on it, which is fine. And, it has some utility, as did the Japanese trucks at the time. You've got this big chrome bumper with, of course, a hitch potential, but of course most people would have put receiver hitches on them. Lower that down. And there you go. I mean, what can you really say about it? It's a truck. Back here is probably a really crappy place to store kids and infants, although frankly a lot of people do. You see pictures of people driving around, kids hanging out. At least in the Subaru Brat, they gave you little chairs with poles to hang on to. In this thing, basically your kids and infants are on their own. They're going to be sliding around back there, and everything is fine. I'll have a look under the hood. Actually a fairly heavy hood in this thing, so I know I'm going to suffer trying to get this up. Oh, God. Yeah, there it is. Get the prop rod going and try not to drop this like a guillotine on me. Okay, so this is a 4.3 V6, but that came much later, and I'll get into that in a minute. Initially, you had 4 cylinders, and you had a 2.8 V6, and they were good enough. In fact, the 2.8 was probably one of the better engines in its class. There were no 6 cylinders in the Datsuns and Toyotas initially, so Chevy sort of had the engine all over them. You had the double wishbone suspension in the front, you had the ladder frame, you had the leaf springs on the back, and it was a pretty good utilitarian truck. Now, as time went on, they improved the engine options. Actually, initially, I think within 2 model years, they had a diesel engine, which came out. It was not hugely popular, but it was there, and Chevy wanted these things to have a pretty wide variety of of setups for, whatever a guy might want. And the diesel did play into that, and of course it mirrors what's going on now. The new Colorado's the truck that's replaced the S10. When it first came out, it also has a diesel option, a much more advanced diesel, but still, following the same path. And of course, as time went on, the engines got better. This was probably the best of the engines in terms of, we get into the Cyclone and the Typhoon, and you get into that crazy turbo stuff. But I mean, in terms of utilitarian, this 4.3 is a terrific engine. It's basically a classic small block Chevy with 2 cylinders shaved off. And that gives it a pretty good amount of torque. I want to say this one has about 240 foot-pounds, horsepower about 160. It certainly helped the load capacity. That goes through a 4-speed automatic in this. This one is 4-wheel drive, so it has a transfer case. And one thing that's neat about what Chevy did, and this again was a step up on the competitors at the time, was they did away with the locking hubs on the wheels. On the old, Chevys, the old Datsuns, Toyotas at the time, and of course the larger trucks from GM, you had to get out and you had to lock the hubs. Putting it in 4-wheel drive was a real pain in the ass. This car came out with sort of a select on the fly, or, to get into 4 low you had to stop, but to go from 2 high to 4 high, you could do it on the fly. And that was a pretty big advancement at the time, and another thing that helped make this truck pretty successful. So anyway, absolutely, no significant wildness in terms of the engines. Really good standard stuff, but good and durable and full of value, which was the whole concept of the S10 at the time. GM's entire marketing of these trucks was all about value for the money, and they did pull it off. They gave a pretty good product with pretty well-proven drivetrains and technology, all for a reasonable price. And as a result, they sold very, very well, and as a result, they're still popular today. They're still considered to be pretty damn good trucks. So anyway, there it is. Under the hood of this one's pretty nice. You see that 4.3. It does have a throttle body fuel injection, and everything that it's supposed to have, so not bad. There were electric S10s, not in the square body generation, but in the next one. Very, very few, but way ahead of their time. I want to say it was maybe 97, 98. They came out with 1,100 of them, and they leased them. I think most of them went back to GM and got crushed, but probably a few still survive. And they used a battery electric system. They had a range of like 50 miles, and it was a test bed for GM to sort of, dick around with the whole electric vehicle thing, and shows you they had it on early. Also, most interestingly, in this square body platform, they had 2 trucks. They had the GMC Cyclone and the GMC Typhoon. That was an SUV and a pickup. They used a 4.3 with a turbo to get up near 300 horsepower. These were holy grail vehicles of my youth. I mean, I was right at the right age. I was even working at a Pontiac GMC store when they were out, and man, did we all want a Typhoon or a Cyclone. And that has not changed. When you see those things coming out on the collector market today, they still command a pretty big amount of money, and I don't think they're going down anytime soon. So, a lot of interesting engine choices over the years in S10s, S15s, and Blazers, and that sort of thing. And I think just about everybody in America has some sort of a Blazer, Jimmy, S10, S15 story that, anyone of a certain age anyway. I know I sure do. I had a bunch of friends who owned these things. I had a friend, Scott, who had more or less this exact truck. It was a 2-wheel drive version, but the same color, same standard cab, same short bed. And he put 16-inch IROC wheels on it and lowered it a few inches, and the thing looked great. Now they're just pretty damn good looking trucks. So tell you what, I'm going to get the hood back down. We're going to have a look inside and then go for a drive. So hold on for just a moment. All right, so let's get back into it. You know, I can't really do the events of 1991. I just had that Chevy Cavalier RS, and we went through them there, so I'll link to that in the description under the video. And, you know, it's not a bad thing to get a video under 45 minutes. It's not a mission, believe me. I'm not trying to make it short, but there's just only so much you can say about these things. I mean, they're fairly simple vehicles, and other than having a huge impact on the truck world and becoming a successful product and spawning an entire genre of small-sized, you know, compact American pickups, they're just not that hyper-technical, but really good-looking truck. This one has nice option package. You see, it's got those alloy wheels, which I think look great. It's got a sliding back window. I like that it has the 6-foot bed, not the long bed. I know long beds are useful, but I don't like the way they look. And I just think it's a handsome truck all around. So let's have a look inside. Okay, and again, this was part of the success of these trucks. They did a nice job at making them feel comfortable and look, you know, of course there were very base models with vinyl seats and, you know, AM radios, and then you get into the Blazers, you could get leather and bucket seats and CD players, and, you know, they just ran the gamut of options. You could get a bunch of different stuff. I do think it's quite cool that this one has power windows, locks, cruise control, and of course the 4x4. But it's got a basically a straight bench seat. You could have also got buckets, but the bench does make it useful, so you can fit, you know, 3 cowboys across. Not going to be happy when you have 3 passengers, but it can do it. For 2 passengers, it's downright comfy. They did make an extended cab version, which was probably more utilitarian because you could fling some Canadians or infants in the back, but in this one you just have, you know, room for some kind of a rifle, shotgun, pistols. Those are your jacking tools over there. You can see it's got speakers in the back, which work fine. You've got a sliding rear window and, you know, everything as it should be. The door panel upgraded in this one with fabrics and materials, but, you know, you could get them in all varieties of just vinyl, whatever, window cranks. Most of them would have had that. You do have a little pocket here to put some crap in, you know, a nice little spot for narcotics, or I don't know what you slide in these guys here, if it's just pens or knives or, you know, whatever, but obviously this is made to slide something inside of, and the rest of the pocket you can put a handgun in. Here's your power windows and locks. That's all very interesting. That one's a little slow to move, but it's moving. The windows work, you know, very nice stuff. This one, being a 91, is just pre-airbag, which to me makes it nicer. Other people may want the safety, but I wouldn't give a crap. And it does have a tilt steering column. Let's hop in. This is the gauge package that I remember from the S10s more than any. These sort of sliding needle gauges. This one does have the full pack that gives you your oil pressure, your voltmeter, your water temp, your fuel, and of course your miles per hour. That could be much less. You could just have gas and fuel and miles per hour and a bunch of warning lights. They also did have a digital cluster, which was pretty cool and very 80s, fantastic. Over here you've got a very simple light switch, 2-prong. You've got your multi-function switch here with the cruise control, which actually works on this thing. I tried it. It's got a tilt wheel, which I like. I think that's a nice feature. Over here you've got, this is kind of interesting. The guy who owned this put this in. This thing probably came with a cassette deck, but now it's better. He put in this factory GM AM/FM stereo radio that's been upgraded to have Bluetooth and an auxiliary input. So it keeps that factory look while at the same time giving you some modern utility, which is nice. You've got a cigarette lighter here, which shockingly hasn't been used. I think most of the cowboys who drove these would have smoked. You got a glove box over here with stuff. All very nice. Down here you've got this little mini center. I don't know what you'd put here. I mean, I guess a phone would stay put, but that's it. I mean, the minute you do anything else, it ain't gonna work. And anyway, there's your transfer case control. You can see you can get it in 2-wheel or 4-wheel high without even without stopping. You get into 4 low, I think think you have to stop and put it in neutral, and we'll test that out. And underneath here is a little compartment where you can put all kinds of crap. I don't think you're going to fit any infants in there unless you push really hard. But otherwise, you know, pens, phones, knives, guns, drugs, you know, whatever it is your S10 driver needs. Up here, a fairly standard rear view mirror with lights underneath it, some sun visors. You got a mirror on that side that Dalton didn't bother to clean. You got an oh shit bar there to hold on to when you're off-roading, and even a little hook to hang your dry cleaning from, because you just never know. So anyway, there it all is. I've got all my crap in the back. I'm going on a trip today. I don't want to leave it back there because that would probably just fly out on the interstate. But so I'm going to pause for 1 second, then we'll fire this thing up and go for a drive. So hold on 1 second. All right, so let's get into this thing and give it a go. Sorry for all the crap sitting over there. You know, it just comes from lack of organization. What the hell are you going to do? So anyway, let's fire this thing up. Here's this 4.3 liter coming to life. Very nice stuff, runs good. And again, a small block Chevy with a couple of cylinders shaved off, so it's not too shabby. Just for fun, I tell you what we're going to do. As I said, you can shift from 2 high to 4 high in drive as you're running along, but we're going to go into 4 low. So I'm going to grab this transfer case. We're in neutral. There's a little bit back more. And I think that's going to get us into 4 low. Yeah, there we go. So now the front are lit up. Yeah, they're okay. So I tell you what, let's do a little 4-wheeling around Peter's driveway here. Our front yard. A shame he doesn't have any big sand burns or anything. Hopefully there's no sprinkler heads, but there probably is. We'll go up this hill back here. It's not really a great test of the 4-wheel drive, but at least it shows it's working. There's my old golf cart. Yeah, there it is. So anyway, getting it into 4 low is a pretty straightforward affair, and you know, back in the early 80s that was a pretty big deal. It you know, you didn't have to get out and unlock the hubs or lock them or whatever to make things work. So we're going to go back into neutral and get us back into 2-wheel drive high. So there's neutral. Probably wanted me to set the parking brake. Now we're in 2 high, so let's go for a spin. Yep. Yeah, okay, so all that's still working, which is nice. And it shows you Chevy was making a pretty durable unit at the time. I bet nobody's put this thing in 4 low in half a decade or more. Maybe it's never been in 4 low. Who the hell knows? Gotta wait for these gates. Are absolutely interminable. Our oil pressure gauge is banging around there. Probably the sensor connection. Let's go for a spin. We'll test out Dalton's windshield as well, which I know is crap. I already know. Well, you know, I cleaned the inside myself this morning, so it's better than it would have been, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, there it is. Plenty of pep. You know, it's not going to set any land speed records, but it certainly gets up and moves. The 2.8 wasn't bad, and the 4.3's even better. I have defrost on, so I got full heat going. Let me get that back down into cool. In fact, we'll get a little bit of AC. Can't hurt. I can't believe it's February and I need to run AC before 9 o'clock. You know, the ride is the ride. It's a little bit bouncy, but of course it's a truck. You've got a full frame. You've got springs in the back. You've got torsion bars up front, so it rides like a truck, but not bad. Other than a little bit of bouncing around, it actually is pretty smooth. And I think it benefits well from that G-body front suspension. G-body based, obviously, wasn't exactly like it, but it's based on it. It has recirculating ball steering, which, is truck-like, heavy-duty, not too shabby. Nice throttle response. You got front disc brakes, I'm sure rear drums. I don't think they had four-wheel discs on these things. And it just tracks down the road pretty nice. It doesn't feel ridiculously small, and it doesn't feel too big. It's just, kind of the Goldilocks size. The Colorado that came out and replaced it wasn't immediately beloved. It got a little bit bigger, and frankly, the build quality was down from the S10, which they had really dialed in by the time, that Colorado rolled around. So pissed off a lot of people who went from S10s to Colorados, but then Chevy got their act together. The steering's nice and smooth, no issues at all. It's just a nice cruising truck. 4-speed automatic does what it's supposed to do. Probably be more fun with a handshaker, but what are you gonna do? This thing's a cruiser now, more of a collectible at this point than anything you're really gonna use as a truck. Anyway, so there it is. I'm not going to do the interstate run. There's no reason. I'm not going to peg the odometer on an old S10. There's just, what would be the point? It's just not what it's for. So it would just be a very boring interstate ride, not much different from what we're doing here, 70 instead of 60. This one will be for sale at Auto House. If you want to give those guys a call, they'll tell you about it. It's also going to be in an upcoming auction, I think, in Punta Gorda in a month or so. And we'll see what happens. Otherwise, I'm going away this weekend, try and get some more cars. I've got my eye on one. I'm not going to name it in case I don't get it. It would suck to tease you with it and not have it. And then some other fun stuff coming up as we go. So thank you very much for having a look. Really, genuinely appreciate it. And we will see you with the next one. Take care.